talking about a red evolution. It sounds like a whisper.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another show of New Hampshire Citizens for Progress. We're going to be discussing energy and how you can become involved with safe energy here in New Hampshire.
Clean energy here in New Hampshire, Rick. That's what we want. I haven't appeared on Rick's show before, but I'm very glad to be here. My name is Bob Backus. I have a show here too. But beyond that, I have extensive experience on energy policy in the state, going back to the fight over Seabrook, going back to the 70s, going on to the State House where I served 4 terms, all on science, technology, and energy. And the last term, I didn't run this last time, but the last term, I was the chairman of that committee. So I've been very involved in this for a long time. And I'm very, very excited to see that thanks to Rick and others who have joined with him, we have a new organization I think can really move us forward to finally moving New Hampshire up in its energy game with better energy policies than some of those we've had in the past.
Yes, and we got a video clip here from an event that we had in September with a state rep from Maine, Lydia Blume.
Yeah, I will just say this video should be very interesting. It's just astounding what we learned about how much Maine is doing under its new governor to move up its energy game. And so this is really, really good stuff. Hope you enjoy it.
We are on.
So we have the pleasure today of being joined by Maine State Representative Lydia Blume, who I mentioned before is going to provide some perspective on what's going on in Maine. And of course, we would like to replicate what has happened in Maine. We want to join our neighbors to the east in their good work and their ambition. So I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce Representative Blume. But first I wanted to ask, Representative, have you been made a host for your slides, or are you going to share your screen? I think John Gage might have made you a host. Representative Blume is in her 4th term in the Maine House of Representatives. She represents the town of York, a town which many of us no doubt enjoy. Serves on the legislature's Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources and the Joint Standing Committee on the Environment and Natural Resources. Representative Blume is an appointed member of the Maine Climate Council and chair of the legislature's bipartisan Coastal and Climate Action Caucus. She's a graduate of Boston University in geography. That means something to me because my spouse is a BU alum, by the way. And lives in Cape Nettic with her daughter. So thanks again, Representative Blume, for joining us here this morning, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Rob. It's such a pleasure to be here with New Hampshire because we are neighbors and we're close, and I'm close neighbors with you. And you have been an inspiration, believe it or not. We were emulating New Hampshire when we began this process for the Maine Climate Council. And the reason is because of your coastal hazards and risk legislation that was ahead of the time. And I hope that, I don't know what's happening with it now, but I hope it's been updated because it was a really good report. And it spurred me on to push for sea level rise legislation in Maine. And that was 7 years ago. It took a long time to finally get to this point where we are now. So keep up the good work. So so we have produced a 4-year climate action plan. It's called Maine Won't Wait. It was produced in December 2020 after a very long time, a very long year with COVID and meeting, but with a highly motivated individuals, just like you guys are. So the Maine Climate Council was a bill that was sponsored by a Republican, Senator David Woodson, and it enjoyed broad bipartisan support when it was assigned in June of 2019. And, you know, it really was because we had a governor who has absolutely put it at the forefront. When she did her speech, she mentioned climate change right off the bat. And we have a majority in the House and the Senate, a very slight majority, but we have a majority. And that kind of momentum has brought this forward. We put in state law our climate goals to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, to achieve carbon neutrality, to advance equity through this whole thing. We've been talking about equity from the beginning through Maine's climate response. And then we also are talking about how we can be more resilient to the ongoing impacts of climate change, the things that we cannot stop. And we've got, compared to New Hampshire, we've got 3,500 miles of coastline as opposed to the 13 and 18, excuse me. And it's it's extremely important. Our marine systems and our coastline is absolutely a driver of economic activity. And that's all the other aspect to this that was always clear, is that this is about good jobs, clean jobs, and creating more jobs for the state of Maine. And we figured out, we had lots of different reports. We figured out where our greenhouse gas emissions were coming from. Most of it is transportation. And I don't know if that's the same for New Hampshire, but it was very interesting to see 54% of our emissions are from transportation. And that's the real challenge in Maine, is how do we do that? And we're going to be doing that through electrification, of course. We are already reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. We're on our way to 80%. So we're below 1990 levels. And that's what our goals are based on. So the Climate Council that was created by this legislature was basically 39 members with scientists and people from different industries and state and local officials. And they are responsible for developing the climate action plan. What we learned actually from New Hampshire, and something that I was pushing for in the beginning of this, is that we needed a scientific and technical subcommittee that would decide, that would work on the science and how climate change was affecting Maine scientifically. And that would inform the 6 working groups that were put into place. This science and technical subcommittee produced a 350-page report that actually decided with all the best knowledge at this point in time, what would be sea level rise, for example, and what we should be preparing for. That has actually now been put into statute. It's actually in the process of getting into statute throughout Maine statutes, so we can be prepared for it. This equity subcommittee that's also part of it is now looking at all of the recommendations and seeing if it's meeting equitable standards. I served on the Coastal Marine Working Group, and I'm now serving on the Community Resilience Planning and Public Health and Emergency Management Working Group. But all of these groups, volunteers, as I said, we met throughout the pandemic, came up with recommendations that were put into the final plan. And I've never been with such an inspired group of people. There was such pent up energy, and I'm sure New Hampshire is going to experience it too. This energy that folks like you have, and then when you're actually able to do something and affect change, it was truly a great experience, and we're very proud of the product that we produced on December 1st, 2020, which was the Climate Action Plan. Very well written. And this, the other thing that the state of Maine did in order to really create this was that Governor Mills started the GOPIF, which is the Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future. She always said that there should be a future planning in every government. And so anyway, that incredibly talented people were hired, and the dream job of people who've studied climate all their lives, like Dr. Cassandra Rose, and she just has done a terrific job and been one of the stalwarts behind this plan. So, but what's important to know about this plan, and I think is that in statute as well, every 4 years we're going to rewrite this plan, because every 4 years the Science and Technical Subcommittee has to update their work. Things might change with the sea level rise, for example. So it's an ongoing process. It's not just one time. We're still meeting as subcommittees, as working groups, and we're monitoring what's happening in the legislature. And we will know that there'll be more things to identify and more things to work on in these subgroups as for the next climate action plan. These are the 4 reports. We did basically the greenhouse gas modeling and also the cost of doing nothing report, which I think is really important. If we don't do anything, it's going to cost us money. And of course, the scientific assessment of climate change, the equity assessment of the draft strategies by the Mitchell Center, looked at everything that before we published to see what our equity, and made some recommendations. And then the Maine Energy Plan to bring more work, more jobs to Maine. So that was published on December 1st, 2020. It's a wonderful, and you can see it as in a flip book online. As I said, it's really well written, really a good read. I recommend you taking a look. So the climate action strategies, we came up with 8 of them. Embrace the future of transportation in Maine, modernize Maine's buildings. We have a wonderful organization called Efficiency Maine here that is really ready to do all of these energy efficiency work, to be able to be a pass-through for money that comes into the state for energy efficiency. And this has been a very big help that we've already had some of these institutions in place prior to this. And thankfully, we had this climate action plan before the ARPA funding came, so we knew exactly where we wanted to put it in relationship also to our biennial budget. I'm going to focus a little bit so that's sort of the background. We just had a meeting yesterday of the Community Resiliency Planning Public Emergency Management Work Group yesterday. So I'm just wanted to give you the newest information about how we're following, how this is being implemented. The ARPA Rescue Plan Act was able to, this is how we're spending that money. 150 million to expand broadband, energy efficiency programs, energy efficient affordable housing. And this is a big one, $20 million for adaptation and climate resilient local infrastructure, extremely important for shovel-ready projects. 8 million for clean energy partnerships, workforce development, 50 million for innovation of heritage industries, which is extremely important, where our fisheries and our forest products industry, we need to make sure that we are on the cutting edge and we are prepared for what happens with the climate. And then we've got 8 million for municipal and public electric vehicle charging stations and 5 million for workforce transportation pilot projects. Now this had to be voted in. It was a majority vote to assess this money this way. And this is on top of what the biennial budget, and this is ongoing. This is just from the state, in that we had 40 million for land conservation. We hadn't put land conservation money in for years under LePage. He refused to let that happen. And we have local and regional planning grants to add to that $20 million. And the 3.1 million for studies, research, and staff to support grid modernization and offshore wind. And 3 million to upgrade municipal culverts at stream crossings, which is a very popular and very important program to bring back our fish and to mitigate against the effects of more frequent flooding and storm surge. One of the and so everything is sort of ongoing at this point, which is great. We've identified there were so many bills that were put in because of this report and from so many different sources. Let me just see if I can. And one of the some of this money is going to these pilot projects. It's going to help inform how we're going to help our municipalities prepare for climate change, because it's like not every town can afford to have a resilience specialist or a planner. You know, Maine is very home rule driven. So we're trying to encourage more regional groupings. And so there's a pilot project that's dealing with some of coastal communities, inland communities, and one in Aroostook County, very rural. And that's going to help inform how are we going to regionalize, how are we going to, what's going to be best to affect it. I have a bill in actually that was held over to take the results of such a pilot project and try to put it into statute and to rewrite some of our municipality statutes relating and bring climate change into the planning. So some of the initiatives and projects that that Maine Won't Wait has spurred is these. We've got heat pumps. We've set a very ambitious goal of converting to heat pumps throughout the state, and we're on track. I don't know the numbers, but we're on track and this very ambitious goal. It's actually working. The community resilience pilot projects, lead by example, clean transportation roadmap, trying to figure out where we're going to put all of the charging stations and what's that plan going forward. The equity subcommittee, which is extremely important to making sure, and this was written in the law too, that we are having equity throughout, and that's something that I think becomes more and more important. We've got a forest carbon task force. We've got a lot of trees in Maine that are really working for us in terms of becoming carbon neutral, and also our marshes, which also blue carbon. And I know that New Hampshire is also doing some work on blue carbon. Agricultural solar siting stakeholder group, offshore wind roadmap. We have the best wind in the Gulf of Maine of any place on the East Coast. And we have a lot of people who use the Gulf of Maine. So it's an extremely exciting success that we were able to finally work and finally come to resolution with the lobster industry about siting of our research array for offshore wind that will be about 30 miles offshore. And the reason we're able to do that is because the University of Maine has developed floating offshore wind, and will be one of the first in this country to have floating offshore wind, which is much better for the environment in the sense that you don't have to drill and create all the noise putting in windmills that are stuck to the bottom, basically anchors, 3 anchors, and it floats. So we can put it in any depth water. It's very exciting. So we have a 16 square mile research array that we've identified the area in the Gulf of Maine, and that is what this offshore wind roadmap. We've got a lot of work to do. What do we need on the coast? What kind of infrastructure do we need in our working waterfronts, for example, to support that? And the Clean Energy Innovation Challenge, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it probably is exactly what it says it is. So as I said, there was lots of legislation that was put forth. These are all the bills that passed. And it was about energy and mitigation of greenhouse gases, and about resiliency of our towns to the effects of climate change. It's a very, very broad set of bills. And some of the other legislation, well, this is just a little more in details, that we have a sea level rise resolve, which is huge, which is going to be put throughout all of our statutes. So we have, right now, we're saying 1.5 feet by 2050, 4 feet by 2100. That's what we need to prepare for. We've got appliance standards. We passed the commercial property, the CPACE program, the Maine Climate Corps, which is starting to get underway and starting to form. How's that going to go? We reinstituted eelgrass mapping. We did some divestment of fossil fuels. We got the equity and we also passed a green bank initiative, which will be great because it looks like the federal government is trying to do that as well. So we'll have a place for that. And the green bank actually may be done through Efficiency Maine. And then just about doing more in terms of energy. And we've changed our net energy, the solar net energy as well. So that's basically just a brief overview of what we did, how we did it. I'm very proud of the work that we did, and I'm very proud of the state of Maine. I think that we are. I just couldn't stop smiling when this stuff. We had been under such work so hard, just like you guys are working so hard, and we gotta. And what I've learned is that you just gotta keep going, and look for the opportunity, and then bring it all together and be ready for it. And I hope that we can continue on with Janet Mills as our governor, so we can continue this good work. We are really making progress. That's how I feel right now.
Thanks. You've provided a lot of hope.
Yes, hope is what we have, and I'm just can't. As I say, it just astounds me how much we've done.
Well, yes, and thanks, and clearly leadership matters in terms of
Yes.
all of these initiatives that Maine has done, and we certainly have a lot to aspire to, and we need more inspired leadership, that's for sure, at all levels.
Well, thank you for watching that clip. The question is, New Hampshire does so many things leading with the activists in this state, whether it be clean energy or, in fact, data. They're looking to us for what's going on, but yet we don't enjoy these policies that we develop. There's Massachusetts, we've lost 40% of our solar installers. Massachusetts has hired 3,600 electricians for installing solar. We don't have 3,600 electricians licensed in the state of New Hampshire. Why can't we enjoy these things?
Indeed, and one of the things I really noticed in the Maine State Representative's excellent presentation was, in Maine, they have set ambitious goals to obtain. We need to have ambitious goals just like that in New Hampshire for addressing the climate crisis, moving away from dependence on fossil fuels, maintaining local employment sources through our solar and industry, which we have a leading company in New Hampshire, Revision Energy. Actually, it's a Maine company, but they're a leading company installing in New Hampshire, and they are not getting the support that would enable them to hire the people that they'd like to hire and do the jobs they would do, although they're still doing some very good work. So I think there's a lot of value we bring. And by the way, that's one of the things that this New Hampshire network is doing. It's bringing together people with a bipartisan or nonpartisan approach, and it's bringing together various groups. It's reaching out and getting information like we did from the gentle lady from Maine, from other places, so that we have good data to move forward and up our own energy game. And by the way, it is really sad, Rick, that New Hampshire is only 18th in the nation in energy efficiency, our best energy source, and dead last in New Hampshire and in New England, behind all our neighbors. So that's not a good thing. So I think this has been an excellent thing, and I hope people will support it.
So this is the New Hampshire Network. If you're an organization or an individual that wants to be active in environment, energy, and climate, please join us. Thank you for viewing us today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Be healthy, be safe.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.